Hello and welcome to the In the Pen podcast, a podcast about relievers, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. My name is Jake Crumpler, and as always, I'm joined by Pitcher List bullpen expert Rick Graham. And Rick, we are entering the final stages of the offseason. Tuesday marks the beginning of the baseball season as the Cubs and Dodgers square off in Japan. Which really means that this weekend is basically the final weekend for fantasy baseball. I know some people have a hard time scheduling, and you got to work around that Japan series and
Yeah.
maybe just completely avoid it. But for you, do you have a lot of work left for this weekend to prepare for the regular season, or is it going to be just chilling, watching spring training, ready for baseball to start?
Yeah, I mean, I tout wars this weekend on Sunday morning, so that's kind of what I've been starting to I'm a little bit late, but I'm starting to prep for that. Especially now, it'll be me and Scott Shue. We got two pitcherless guys in my league, so that should be fun. And NL only is always a interesting deep dive into some, really deep down the bench type guys you got a roster there. So it's always a little bit more to kind of uh, project and um, plan for. So between that, I have a draft the weekend after, and that's about it outside of, the slow drafts we got going on with TGFBI, which I'm in the slowest draft, I think, of all time. We might be done before opening day. I'm not sure yet. I honestly don't think we're on track to finish before opening day.
Well,
Um,
yeah, that opening day. I think you'll
yeah.
be done by
The
real opening day.
No, that's what I'm talking about. The real
Oh,
opening
really?
day.
Wow.
Like we're about halfway through. So yeah, we might be okay. But then we'll have the pitcher list one too, which now you're in my league in that. So we get to talk about that on here. That would be fun.
That will. Yeah. Now we're in two leagues together.
Yeah.
It's getting competitive. You were in tout last year. You shared a team with Nick, right?
That was labor.
Okay.
Yeah. Tout.
Hard to keep
I've
track
done
of
this is
all
my
of them.
yeah, I know this is my third year with Tout NL. Only I came in second last year.
Sick.
Lost to Ian Kahn, who's not in our league anymore. So,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of good. I mean, Derek Carty's
Of
always
course.
tough to go against,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's a lot of big good names. Tristan Cockcroft. Yeah, it's a good league.
Yeah, well, it sounds great. I'm in the same boat as you. My slow draft is wrapping up, and that's basically my last one, other than the pitcherless staff league, which
Right.
unsure when that's going to happen. I'm sure next week
Yeah.
or something like that. So, yeah, I'm getting to the point where I'm putting my hands under my butt and just waiting for stuff to happen because
Yep.
I'll tweak all my teams, I'll drop guys, and honestly, for me, the thing I remember most was last year in our home league. I drafted JP Sears in the final round, and then I held on to him for all the weeks leading up to opening day because I couldn't decide if I wanted Casey Mize or Jared Jones or Luis Heel. So I just
Mm,
let you have them all.
I know. I took all. I know. Yep. So
And then I was screwed because then I just dropped JP Sears because he was facing the Dodgers on opening day or something. So I
yeah,
dropped him and he was great though in that start and the rest of the season. So I just gotta, put my hands away.
you got. There's a lot of talent on the waiver wire in that league. You just got to get out ahead of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Well, we're here to talk relievers as always. Today we will be performing an AL bullpen preview. So you'll get coverage on every single bullpen in the American League. We'll talk about the closers, we'll talk about the setup man, and we'll discuss big storylines for each of those bullpens. And prior to that, we'll discuss the news and transactions from the past week since our last podcast last March 6th. So we'll start with the news, beginning with one that I think we were pretty aware of. Michael Kopech of the Dodgers should start the season on the IL. He's dealing with right forearm tightness. He shouldn't be on the IL for too long. This report suggests that he'll be back at some point in April. Does this change anything? Any? Does this change your strategy with the Dodgers bullpen? Do you think Michael Kopech's absence early on in the season sort of helps the other guys there, or do you think him returning later in the season is just going to muddy things up all over again?
Um. Yeah, I don't think it changes much as far as who's going to be closing out games and whatnot. I think you're looking at, like they they double down kind of on Tanner Scott being the guy, um, and Blake Trinan also being there. And I think honestly, Kirby Yates was just like a they're really treating him just like a luxury item, like just like, hey,
Mhm.
he wanted to come win a World Series, so like he's here, he's just gonna pitch in the sixth, seventh inning and ring chase basically. So I don't think Kopech and Phillips, they're probably both gonna be back soon, but I think they're just gonna slide into some sort of middle relief setup type role. I don't unless Tanner Scott really struggles to begin with, and that's something he has had issues in April before. So
Mhm.
it could make things interesting when Kopech and Phillips are ready to return. But um, yeah, I don't think I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how this bullpen, when they're finally like fully healthy, how they play things from like the fifth, sixth inning on. I do think I like Trinan's velo's back up to where it was like before his injury, so like he might even be back to like another level from where he was at last year. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how good this bullpen is. It's doesn't need any more help really.
Totally. Yep. And sticking in the NL West, no news here, but no news is sometimes news, I guess. The Diamondbacks have still not decided on a closer. The trio of Kevin Ginkel, AJ Puck, and Justin Martinez are not guys who have a lot of experience closing. And according to the GM, that seems to be a problem, or not necessarily a problem, but definitely a point, a sticking point. And he suggests that you got to prove it. If you want to be the closer, you have to get saves. Rick and I were making jokes prior to the episode of my mind has literally just gone blank right as I was about to tell the story. Can you tell the story?
Yeah,
That was crazy.
it's like when you were like looking at like jobs, like job postings, and it's like, entry level, looking for college graduates, but you have to have 8 years of experience in the
Yeah,
role. It's like, what are you talking? Like, what do you mean? Like, you don't get experience until you have like
yeah.
Justin Martinez isn't just going to show up there with like 45 saves to his name. Like he has to get them somewhere or
I was
another.
recording
Like,
saves all off
yeah,
season, man.
yeah. Like what? Like in my head, in my virtual reality world, I was just getting
MLB the
saves.
show.
Yeah, like I mean, you got to get out there and do it is kind of what he's saying, and that's what I mean. I think he means is like I don't know. There's just been a lot of talk that's been going nowhere about who's going to be the closer there. It's just all you know verbal diarrhea essentially. It's like I don't know. I'm still we'll talk about the NL. Maybe we'll have a clearer picture next week. Um, but the fact that Kevin Ginkel's name's still in there and he's basically free, he's kind of becoming someone I'm like, what, fifth on 550th pick in TGFBI. Why not? Like, let's
Yeah.
see what happens there because he's had a good spring too, and he was good last year. He was the guy in the role when Seawall missed time. So um, yeah, I don't know. Could be any one of the three really at this point.
Yeah, we'll see. But our money's still on AJ Puck. I've been trying to draft him everywhere, and he still feels like one of the best values in all of the drafts. So if drafters are still uncertain about what to do with the Diamondbacks bullpen, we are suggesting AJ Puck. Though, as Rick mentioned,
Yeah,
Kevin Kinkle, very, very, very late, is a great value. Our last bit of news involves a transaction as Phil Maton signed with the Cardinals for 1 year and $2 million. He had his club option declined by the Rays. It was worth 7.75 million.
Mets,
So
right?
big downgrade. What was that?
He ended up in the Mets last year, right? After the Rays
Oh
signed
yeah,
him, and
you're right.
yeah, yeah.
Good call. Yeah. So the
Mhm.
Mets actually declined that. That's a good point. And now he joins a St. Louis bullpen that is, I don't know. There's lots of names there that I don't think many people would recognize past Helsley, and that sort of leaves space for Maton to take over as possibly a Holtz candidate.
Yeah, for sure. After really after Helsley, I know Ryan Fernandez had a good year last year, but there's nothing special in that profile to make me think like he's definitely gonna, hang on to a setup role all year long.
Mhm.
Same with Jojo Romero too. He was kind of up and down at points last year. And yeah, after that, it's I like it certain like I like Riley O'Brien a lot. I don't know, he hasn't pitched in a while. I don't know what's going on with him. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of opportunity here. So hopefully Mitone can stay healthy, get that funky fastball back to being effective again. And yeah, because there was a time 2 years ago with the Astros where he was looking like a future. I don't know about closer, but like a top tier setup option. So he's not too far removed from that.
Yeah, I always thought he was going to be picked up by an underperforming team, and they would use him as the closer and then trade him. I thought that would
Yeah.
happen over the previous couple of years, but then he signed that sort of big contract with the Rays, and nothing really ever worked out there, including the trade to the Mets. So nothing really came of that, and I don't see that happening in the future. But his abilities, despite his stuff not being overwhelming, he should be a solid option in that St. Louis bullpen though. Now we can move over to the main topic. As we had very little intro today, we'll just jump right in to our American League bullpen preview. So how we're going to do this is we're going to run through every single bullpen. We'll discuss the closer, the next man up, and a main storyline for each of the teams, so we can really get an idea of what we should be looking for with these teams early on in the season and how we can sort of take advantage of that as we get through the season. So let's start with the Orioles in the AL East. Their closer, clearly Felix Bautista, with the next man up being Sir Anthony Dominguez. I think the main storyline here, which seems to be surrounding Bautista throughout the offseason, is whether or not he can hold up for the whole year, or if his early struggles in the season that are expected after his Tommy John surgery, or it was not full Tommy John surgery, wasn't it?
Oh, it was.
Regardless, it was. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Um, so will those struggles likely resulting from his Tommy John surgery ultimately remove him from the ninth?
Um, I don't think so. I think they know they have a pretty like succinct plan. I feel like they're expecting some struggles early on. They're slow playing him almost to a fault. I feel like maybe he's now, I think it's 16 months removed from surgery, and I mean I understand this is like one of your best pitchers in general, not let alone your best reliever. So you want to make sure he's healthy for the entire season. So I think I'm more concerned about um just like how much are we going to see from him in April? How's the command going to look? Is the velo going to be back to 98 in like May? Or I'm not even sure he necessarily needs to be that guy, because like the metrics with him throwing 96, 97 are still crazy.
Mm-hmm.
um like 21 and a half inches of vertical break.
Wow.
And with that like 6'8" frame coming at you, it plays up. It's still really hard to hit. So I think he'll be fine. I mean, Sir Anthony Dominguez is going to vulture a couple saves here and there early on. Um, but yeah, I just when are they going to take the training wheels off and just like going to let him go? And they've been really slow playing it in March. So I think April will be similar, but I'm hoping come May, it's May halfway through May at least, like that's full go for him. Um, and like I said, the velo doesn't concern me too much. It would be nice to see him back up to 98, but it's the command, and he's never been a big command guy because his stuff's so nasty. He's just getting tons of swings and misses, but he's gonna have to at least command his fastball, especially early in counts. And I mean, the splitter is never going to be a good strike pitch, but it's got to be around the plate enough for hitters to offer at it. So yeah, command's always my big concern. Guys coming back from Tommy John.
So then this sounds like a situation where you can really take advantage of maybe a manager who's not too confident in him, where in that first season, if they're babying him, they won't take the training wheels off. He's, only getting one save a week and maybe show some signs of struggling command. Is that the chance for you to then pounce on that manager and say, "Hey, I'll take him off your hands if he's struggling so much"? And what sort of red flag would you see from Bautista that would have you holding off of
Mm.
pursuing that trade?
I guess if the velo really just sits at like 95, 96, I'll be concerned. Um, the command obviously has to be there somewhat. If he's walking 15% of hitters, that's not going to be good, obviously. Um, and yeah, so if the velo's down and the swing and miss is down, like let's see what his swinging strikes whiff rates are looking like. That's always been his. He gets so many whiffs with his splitter, especially. So if he's not able to get guys to chase the splitter, something's wrong. I would like. I mean, you can probably wait until like late April if he gets
Mhm.
off to a slow start. someone's going to get frustrated with them. Maybe you drafted, I don't know, Ryan Presley, and he got off to a really good start, and like you can
Hmm.
maybe convince someone to, make a trade there. So that's kind of a savvy move I would look into. But yeah, we'll be monitoring him every week from here on out, or like at least early on, especially like we're gonna have to
Yeah.
see where he's at. So, um, but yeah, I still I'm have high hopes for him. I know he got blown up a little bit in his last. I think it was his last outing. He got hit hard, but I don't know. It's spring. The guys are just trying to throw their stuff over the middle, or just they're not really too worried about command. They're trying new things. They're just trying to get a better feel for something. So I'm not too worried about it. But um, yeah, I and Sir Anthony Dominguez shouldn't be much of a threat. I know he closed out games for them last year, but he was very shaky. He was like allowing a run every game he like closed out. He was like pretty consistent with that, weirdly. But he was always able to hold on, so didn't get a ton of blown saves despite giving up a ton of runs. But if anything does happen here, I mean, Yennier Cano is kind of getting slept on a little bit because he
Hmm.
had another good season. I know the strikeout rate's not great, but he's very solid. I do like him more of a setup guy, but I feel like if anything long term were to happen here, I'd rather Cano over Dominguez, just consistency wise. Or if they were to, feel comfortable with Keegan Aiken, who's coming off a really good season that no one really knows about. I don't want to say no one knows about, but like a very under the radar. 31% K rate last year, and he was like top 10 in XFIP for the season too. So that's over 78 innings as well. So he's
Yeah.
kind of become their lefty workhorse there. So there's still options there for sure. At least getting the ball to Batista, I think they should be all set.
I agree. All right, let's move over to the Red Sox, where there is a lot more uncertainty in the closer role, as all three of Liam Hendricks, Aroldis Chapman, and Justin Slayton are in play for the ninth inning. I think our opinion right now is that the battle is between Hendricks and Chapman, with Chapman probably having a slight step up because of the lack of injury and maybe the lower number in the age category there. But with these three, the main question is who's the closer, and then I think on top of that, most importantly, in my opinion, will can Liam Hendricks return to his pre-surgery form, having missed almost 2 years of baseball?
I think is Aroldis Chapman older than Liam Hendricks? I don't know. They're
There's
both
no
old.
way.
There might be. Um,
Yeah, it's 37 and 13 days for Aroldis. And Liam Hendricks
36.
is 30. Well, he's younger.
Yeah,
Whoa. Okay, then I have to. I
Chapman's been
mean,
around
I
for
got to retire, right?
yeah. um, I know because Liam Hendricks has the same birthday as me, so I that's another
Oh,
reason why I love him. And as much as I love Liam Hendricks, I'm so out on him this year. I'm so sad. I don't think it's gonna happen. His velo still. I mean, I don't. So Greg and we were talking about this on Podapalooza. Like there was a scout that saw Hendricks pitch recently and was saying how his command, he's just got no command right now. He's all over the place. He's 94, 95, like 93, 94, touching 95, 96 here and there.
yikes.
Um, he's like the one guy who I haven't been able to get any data on because the Red Sox will not throw him when they're at a Statcast park. And I swear, I don't know if that's intentional or not, but I feel like it's kind of intentional. I don't know. Like every other Red Sox arm, I've been able to get some sort of you know, data from at least one game. Hendricks, nothing so far. So all we
Sure.
know is from scouts saying like he doesn't look right, he doesn't look good. His velo's 94, 95, where he's never been good. I mean, his whenever during his good years, it was 97, 98, and pretty much sat at 97 and a half. So 94, 95 for a guy who really lives off of that fastball and then working the breaker off of that. um, it's kind of like, when we started seeing the cracks in Craig Kimbrell, where he started losing velocity, and it's like, well, now the velocity is not scary, so I'm not gonna be as likely to chase that curveball, down and away. Um, So I'm until we see Hendricks like sitting 96 at least, or like I don't know, just see something from him that's positive. Because even like the stuff alone, like the outings have been bad too. He's been getting hit around, allowing a lot of runs. So I kind of am leaning now towards Justin Slayton being the guy here. I just now
Whoa.
he's sick though. He's got this like stomach bug that's keeping guys out for
Oh,
like 10 to
so you meant
15
in like a
days.
good way.
No, I he is dirty, but he's also ill physically right now. And I guess like Roman Anthony lost 15 pounds or something when he like got this
Oh, they all
illness.
got it.
It's been going around. Um, but if he's able to bounce back from that and get a couple outings, the thing with Chapman is I can't picture Alex Cora just sitting and like putting up with like some of these, the typical Chapman outings where he's throwing 9 balls in a row. Like I don't know, maybe I mean it's just not the guy I would want closing games. He has experience in it. He might have the best stuff right now, but um I don't know. We probably won't hear anyone named the closer. Is my guess. Is it's going to be they're going to say committee, and then we'll have to see what happens in the first few weeks. But I feel like Slayton, I mean Garrett Whitlock. The only thing with him is I think they're going to want him to be multiple inning guy, which doesn't mean he can't finish the eighth and ninth. But I just think he's going to
Yeah.
be used earlier on in games rather than later. So I think it's Slayton and Chapman right now, and Hendricks is a work in progress. They're just kind of hoping. I don't. Maybe he starts the year in the IL. I don't know. I don't know if they can put him the way the way he is right now. I don't know if he can be in the opening day bullpen.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's not too positive there on Liam Hendricks, but I think you do make a good point about them not wanting to name a closer. I feel like committee makes sense earlier in the season between Slayton and Chapman, right, where they're just switching off between a righty or lefty
Pretty much,
loaded
yeah.
ninth. Yeah. So yeah, I do agree. I think across the board, and I'd probably be targeting Slayton. I have not had any desire to draft Liam Hendricks at all, and I have never had a desire to draft Aroldis Chapman, at least in the last decade. But Justin Slayton, he's going super late, and like you said, he's might be the best reliever of this bunch. Once things get going, so that's certainly interesting to keep an eye on there. I think Slayton's great value, and I would not be surprised if there's majority of leagues where he's on the wire.
hmm Yeah, I mean, for 12 teamers, he's probably out there. So depending on what your last roster spot is, like what you got hanging out on the bench, like he's definitely worth consideration because yeah, it's just the survival of the fittest now, and it's really between Chapman and Slayton for me, with maybe Whitlock.
Mhm.
I just can't see any way Hendricks. Maybe something. Maybe he comes out the next outing and he's dominant, throwing 97 again. But I mean, he's been. I mean, he started pitching. Like, this is the difference between him and Batista. Batista just threw off a mound against batters for the first time like a couple weeks ago. Like Hendricks was doing this in September, so
Yeah.
the fact that we're still not seeing any progress, and at his age, it's just like maybe it's just not going to happen. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm definitely concerned with him.
All right. Well, that's Liam Hendricks. Concerns are apparent. Next, we're going to discuss the New York Yankees, but first, we're going to take a quick break here on In the Pen. And we're back. Jake Crumpler here with Rick Graham on In the Pen. Make sure to tune into YouTube, and you won't have any ads in there. Possibly. Um,
That's true.
so
Yeah.
let's dive into the Yankees as their closer is clearly Devin Williams, one of their marquee acquisitions of the offseason, which moves their former closer Luke Weaver into the setup role and creates a situation where Devin Williams is the clear storyline here. And for me, I feel like the biggest question is how does he hold up in a new environment, especially one that's somewhat hostile in New York, because he's moving from, I think the Milwaukee ballpark is pretty offensive friendly, and so
Yeah.
is the Yankees ballpark. So that shouldn't have too much of an effect, though there may be some sort of difference in the right and lefty splits.
Mm.
And, pitching in front of a completely different crowd with completely different expectations, all while preparing to become a free agent this offseason. So, how do you think Devin Williams holds up in New York?
I think he'll be fine as long as the thing that worries me about him holding up is his back, I guess, because those are always tricky. They don't get better as you get older. So like him already having some serious back, injuries in his past and just recently, last year. So that's the only concern. It's not keeping me from like rostering him, but at the same time, and we've been pretty consistent on this. Like I don't think we're drafting any of these, guys going in the top 40. So I'm not going to end up with Devin Williams anywhere. But I don't have too many concerns with him. I think, yeah, even with like right field being, such a hitter's haven for lefties there, it's, Devin Williams' best pitch is a changeup. So
Yep.
um, I feel like he'll be fine. Luke Weaver scares me. I mean, not that like you're drafting him in standard leagues, but I don't know. I haven't seen him. I saw him throw like a week ago, and his velo was way down, and I just am concerned that workload last year was like pretty crazy for someone who has not pitched that much in the past like 3 or 4 years. So,
84 innings and 62 appearances.
and that's not even counting the post. I think with the postseason, I think
Oh,
it comes out to 99 innings.
wow.
And I 99 innings, and I forget how many actual appearances, but like probably 75 ish. So
Looks
like,
like 74.
oh, we're close.
Close.
So like that's for a guy who, if you look back at his track record of, staying healthy and whatnot, that's a little dicey, especially because it's a lot different when you're starting games and he just kind of transitioned to being a reliever and you got to
Mhm.
warm up way more often. You're getting hot. You're getting hot in the bullpen. Like even when you're not pitching, you're still out there throwing. So it takes a whole different toll on your body. It can help. It can help him save, like make his career longer, but it could also maybe create some more injuries and some more risk there. So, um, I mean, I'm still like, this is all speculation, so I'm not shying
Yeah.
away from Weaver and Holds leagues, but I'm, just something like in the back of my mind where like if it's between him and you know, someone like Edwin Uceta, maybe I'm like, I'm probably gonna go with Uceta. Just feel a little bit less mileage there, and yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking. After that, it gets really dicey there. I don't. This Yankees team, I mean, they really might finish in last place in the AL. So AL East,
The new
AL East,
whole AL. Yeah, I was
the
like,
AL East. I mean, they're not the
whoa.
White Sox. They're not White Sox bad, but the AL East. I mean, we'll see if the Blue Jays can pass them.
Yeah,
I think they
I
might.
think what I hear from you is that there are some concerns with Luke Weaver, and I hear you on those, especially like coming off a breakup or a breakout. He's going to be pretty high on draft boards in holds leagues.
Yeah.
So Fernando Cruz, somebody you'd prefer to target out of the Yankees bullpen as a holds candidate, given how good he was in Cincinnati last year, despite the inflated ERA.
Yeah, I wonder, going from a going from a hitter's ballpark to a slightly less friendly hitter's ballpark, but a pretty hitter
Yeah,
friendly ballpark. So it's not too much of an upgrade for Cruz, but I feel like, yeah, the ERA of 4.86 is definitely not where it should be.
hmm,
He should probably be more of a 3.5 guy, which with a 37.8% K rate, and I would think he's in the mix for holes. He's looked pretty good this spring. I think they have Ian Hamilton as a setup guy. I think I have Cruz ahead of him for sure.
yeah,
And then yeah, after that, it's like, I mean, Mark Leiter, maybe he's another hit or miss guy. Jake Cousins, what are we gonna get from him? He looked good in spurts, but dude
he
can't
did.
stay healthy.
Hmm.
So bullpen could be really good. It could be really bad fast. I mean, there's a lot of volatility in this bullpen right now. So, but there's a ton of talent for sure with Weaver, Hamilton, Cruz, and Cousins behind Devin Williams.
All right. Plenty of potential in the Yankees bullpen. Let's move over to the Rays, where their closer is set to be Pete Fairbanks, and the next man up being Edwin Uceta. I think the main question here is how long does Pete Fairbanks hold the job? That question, I think, arises every single year with him, with the long history of injuries, inconsistencies in performance last year, as well as Uceta's rise up the ranks last year at the end of the year, looking like one of the best relievers in baseball in the second half. Huge strikeout numbers there. On top of that, I've been hearing reports that the new stadium, or not the new stadium, but the stadium they'll be playing at this year is a hitter's haven. I heard specifically it was like Yankee Stadium with a jet stream out to right field, which that
Yeah.
sounds insane. So that's very concerning for Fairbanks. How long do you think it is until he is no longer closing? Or
Um,
if
yeah, I'm the velo's been I mean, that's the thing. Closers velo right now it's all pretty much down across the board. But with Fairbanks, it is a little bit more concerning because there has been a trend going that way. But he's throwing his changeup more. Maybe that will counteract it. Maybe that's gonna be enough. But like the numbers last year just weren't really good.
yeah,
No way to sugarcoat it. He had a 23.8% strikeout rate, which is not I would not have guessed that for Pete Fairbanks, the way we've talked about him in the past. Like
yeah,
the stuff's always been he's gonna have a good strikeout rate, and then last year it just plummeted. Um so I I don't know if they'll trade him there because he's just got such a connection to the city and loves being there. And there's like a thing like I don't know if they'll move on from him. If he does lose the role, I'm not even sure Edwin Uceta gets it because they like using him in a multi-inning role. So now I'm thinking, I mean, but that's the thing. Like, I mean, I love Mason Montgomery too, but I don't know if maybe they'll just let him go out there for 3 outs and let him rip it for 3 outs and throw 99 from the left side. Um, this bullpen can be really good. It will be really good. It's the Rays, let's be honest. So yeah, Fairbanks gets off to a slow start. There's a number of names here that could take the role. I just don't know. You said it would certainly be fun. I would love that, but the way that they've been using him, they like him going 1.2 innings, and maybe like we talk about with Whitlock, maybe it's he'll get a couple saves, but he'll also come in the sixth inning to get out of a jam and then finish the seventh here and there. So it could really end up being a committee if Fairbanks does lose the job. I'm staying away from him for the most part. If he falls, I'll consider it, but um, that arm might be toast at this point. I don't know how much is left because we've never seen him throw 50 innings in a season. We keep waiting for that. It hasn't happened. And now the velo's going to. Yeah, we'll see. I hope he proves us wrong. I hope he proves me wrong, at
yeah.
least.
Would love to see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
very. It's the same thing every year with Pete Fairbanks. It's nothing new. It's the same thing every year, except now on top of that, we have concerns about his abilities because in the past 2 years where we've been hyping him up, it's like take the
Stuff's
chance.
great.
You're
Yeah.
just all like if he's healthy, he's the best reliever in baseball. If not, you just put him on the IL. But in this
Yeah.
situation where you're unsure if he's going to be good or closing when he's
Yeah.
pitching, it becomes a lot riskier. And you make some good points on Uceta that I honestly had not considered all offseason while pumping him up all year. Is that Uceta was used a lot in to go multiple innings, despite being the go-to guy for saves in September. He
Mhm.
only had two. But still, I see what you're saying that there are plenty of options there that they could turn to. I mean, we saw Manuel Rodriguez seem to be trusted in the ninth inning as during the same time as Uceta. So there's plenty of guys there, and who knows what they could do with some random dude that they acquired in the offseason.
All right.
Alex Faedo could come up and be like the next Pete Fairbanks. So you never really know with the Rays, but it's worth keeping an eye on, especially with the concerns surrounding Pete Fairbanks. Let's move over to the Blue Jays, who acquired Jeff Hoffman in free agency to be their closer, as well as bringing back Jimmy Garcia, who is likely to be the next man up, though Chad Green is there as well. And the question we've been discussing all offseason, and I think it still stands, is will Hoffman be deployed as the higher leverage reliever, or is he going to be a traditional closer? Can we find value in Jimmy Garcia getting saves this year?
Um, they haven't announced anything, but I feel like I don't know if Hoffman's going to be a traditional closer because there's no like we talked about. He doesn't need to be like they just because he's paid the most doesn't mean that he needs to be finishing the game. They just need to get important outs from him. So whether that be the sixth, seventh, eighth inning, or the ninth, I mean, I'm sure he'll lead the team in saves, but I do think there could be a opening there for Garcia to sneak into 8 to 10 saves and give you a nice strikeout rate, good ratios. So he's not someone to totally rule out and a 14 teamer or 16 teamer for sure. So yeah, I think Chad Green, he kind of faded towards the end last year. Swing and miss stuff's kind of gone from him. I'm not too high on what he can bring, so I think it's Hoffman and Garcia at this point here. Um, Maybe Green gets some of that swing and miss back and has a bounce back season, but yeah, Hoffman and Garcia are the only two that I like for fantasy purposes here.
Totally. And I feel like it's important to clarify that when I say Hoffman being used as the high leverage reliever,
Doesn't
that doesn't
mean
necessarily mean he's not getting saves. It
right.
doesn't mean he's not the closer. It doesn't mean he's not valuable in fantasy and standard leagues because he's still going to be someone. I think he's guaranteed at least 15 to 20 saves, no matter what role he's in, as long as he's healthy. And he's been such a good reliever over the past couple of years that even if he's not getting 20 plus saves, he's still immensely valuable for your team. And if you can, lock down Jimmy and Jeff Hoffman on your team,
Yeah.
you're getting the best of both worlds.
It's an interesting. I mean, he's one of those guys that the volatility of where they're being drafted. I've seen him go in the 60s. I've seen him go at like 110. It's like
Mm-hmm.
really anywhere in that range right now. And I mean, 60 is definitely too high for me. But after pick 100, yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. So, um, but yeah, and then you handcuff it with Garcia late. It's not the worst thing you could do, especially in those
Yeah.
deeper 14 teamers.
Yeah, in TGFBI, the TGFBI ADP has Jeff Hoffman at 124, going as low as 92 and as high as 156.
156. Wow.
Yeah, someone got
That's good
lucky.
value,
I
yeah.
wonder what league that was. Oh,
That's
not mine. He
probably
went to
mine.
he went to 151 in mine though,
There
which
you
is
go.
interesting. But I was waiting. I set the max on Tanner Scott and Jordan Romano, so I had plenty of
Oh,
relievers to wait on. So it's going pretty well in the closer market there. That wraps up our review of the AL East. Now we'll jump into the AL Central and start with the number one team, the Chicago White Sox. Got basically everyone in that bullpen is up for the ninth inning role. I mean, it looks like roster resources got Justin Anderson, Mike Clevenger, Fraser Ellard, Gus Farland, and Jordan Leisure, which means all five of those guys are in play for the setup role as well. And honestly, I think more important than the who's going to be the closer here is it even worth it to pay attention to
no.
this bullpen, not just in the offseason, but throughout the year? Is it possible that somebody emerges from this group to get the majority of the saves, which is integral to being a fantasy viable guy in that White Sox bullpen? Because if you're not the number one guy, if you're not the only guy getting saves there, you're splitting 20
Yeah,
saves across five guys and it's just not worth it. And then on top of that, they got to be good enough that they're going out there and pitching really well because they're not going to get save opportunities every week. It's like Mason Miller. It must have been last year at the beginning of the year where they didn't have a lot of save opportunities, but he's still going out there and
yeah.
pitching incredibly. And it didn't really matter how good the A's were. So the question here is it even worth it, keeping an eye on this bullpen and seeing if you can find value at some point?
I think it's not. I mean, I wouldn't draft anyone.
Mhm.
But if someone emerges, yeah, uh, there's definitely a chance that they become a solid third reliever for you. The White Sox are going to be bad. They're not going to be as bad as they were last year. I don't think. I don't think. That said, they did lose Garrett Crochet,
They did.
um, but I I don't know. They were just so bad last year, and like there was no save chances for big chunks of that season.
Mhm.
Where it like Michael Kopech was pitching well here and there, but it just wasn't for fantasy purposes. It just wasn't really
Yeah.
didn't make sense to roster him for especially in 12 teamers. Um, so yeah, 12 teamers, I'm not taking a shot on anyone. I'll still see what happens and maybe someone emerges. I don't want to fall for Jordan Leisure again.
Yeah,
Um,
and that Prelander Baroa injury is
yeah,
unfortunate as well.
right. That was the one guy I was like, all right, at least he's got swing and miss stuff.
Exactly.
But yeah, now I don't know. I really would hate for it to be Clevenger, but
Mhm.
there seems to be a lot of talk about that, and he's throwing harder now that he's in a shorter, smaller, shorter outings. So, um, he could get the first chance, but I just, yeah, I don't see them there's bad teams that have good closers that are valuable. I just don't think this is gonna be the situation here because you have to be
Yeah.
both. You have to be like Mason Miller. You have to be able to, if you're not giving me saves, do something. Help me out
Mhm.
somewhere. Help me out ratios, strikeouts, whatever. So I don't think they're gonna have a guy that can do that.
Yeah. If you were forced to put one of these guys on your
Oh god.
watch list in a deep league, which one would it be?
Um, Justin Anderson. I mean, I want to say Leisure, Jordan Leisure. I just I mean, there was a pretty big sample size last year where he was not good. So I'll say
Yeah.
Justin Anderson. He throws 96 and had a 23.6% K rate last year. Sure.
All right.
Um, why not?
I'll go with I like Gus Varlin still.
I know. Yeah,
His
he was
fastball has got really good metrics.
okay. Yeah.
97th percentile height adjusted VAA, 89th percentile IVB, 84th percentile horizontal break, 96th percentile PLV. Pretty good.
Okay. I'll take it. Yeah.
But it's the White Sox. It's just for your watch list in a deep league.
Yeah. Uh, just pay attention early on. You'll get a sense of what they're doing. Maybe not even early on. It might take like 3 weeks for them to get enough wins and saves, but
Yeah,
something will happen. Someone will come to the forefront there.
that's right. All right, let's move over to the Cleveland Guardians, where it's pretty set in stone here. Emmanuel Clase, the closer, Cade Smith as the setup man. And I think question here is, can we expect our number one closer, Emmanuel Clase, to finish as the number one reliever? And then I think, honestly, a more helpful question is Cade Smith worth rostering in standard leagues? Is he worth drafting?
I would have been more on the fence about that Cade Smith question like a month ago, but now I do think he should be drafted pretty much in every league. I'm not saying like don't draft. Well, I mean, I have been saying don't draft Class A, but like I'm not saying he's moving away from being the number one closer in my ranks. But he's been really bad this spring.
Mm.
Velo is down, uh, and it's hard to just forget about the postseason where he got shelled um, by the Tigers of all teams. So my concern with Clase is I think he's been trying to work his slider in more, and his slider is not that great. He's just he's a cutter is dominant, and as long as he's throwing it around 99, 100, I think he'll be fine. But yeah, that's like if that's the one pitch you have, and if it does lose some velo, I maybe it becomes just a little bit more hittable, and guys are barreling it a little bit more. That could change. Well, that ERA could go up 3 points almost. So again, I'm not
And it'd still be
taking
good.
it'll still probably save 45 games.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like I think if you're drafting Class A, you're doing it because you're for the save, like just to get saved. So I'm only really into him for roto purposes, like where I'm drafting guys for a stat for a category. Um, so I don't know. I'm a little concerned. I don't think the health's the issue. Nothing's been said, so I can't speculate on that. So I feel like this happened. I don't know. I feel like I've said this before with Classe in spring at some point where he was a little bit off. So I think we just got to give him some time to work it out. But Cade Smith, I mean, even if he doesn't get saves and Classe doesn't miss time or whatever, Cade Smith's still going to be a really good reliever for you. So someone to stash and for a week, a couple weeks, maybe a month, see what happens with him. We'll see what happens with Classe. Um, but yeah, Smith's another guy where he threw a lot of innings last year too. He in that Luke Weaver category where it's like
Hmm.
a guy who has never done this before. Is he going to be able to do it again? That's a huge workload for him last year for someone who's never done that.
Yeah, yeah. But I agree that he's definitely worth rostering, especially in my opinion in 12 team head to head. I just think that the weekly value of an
Yeah,
elite setup man is way more valuable in those leagues than a lot of people give them credit for, because just the handful of innings where somebody's producing a 0 ERA with a 30% strikeout rate, is just the last stats you usually need to secure that win in those leagues.
He was like a I don't know, he was like a top 50 player and top 50 pitcher
Wow.
in standard in our like pitcherless league. He would be like a top
Hmm.
50 pitcher to roster. So yeah, there's definitely value in that. Maybe he doesn't do the same thing as he did last year, but there's going to be a guy like him that pops up.
Yeah,
So hopefully we'll be able to identify who that is early on and help you out with that. But yeah, I even where Kate Smith's going, Griffin Jackson, the 300s, like, yeah, sure. 12 teamers in my last pick. Yeah, I'll take them. Sure. Absolutely.
totally. All right, we'll move over to the Detroit Tigers and discuss Jason Foley, Bo Brieski, and Tyler Holton as the closing candidates, as well as the setup candidates. And I think my question here is who leads the team in saves this year? You got a lot of options. The whole bullpen's up for grabs, but who is your bet to finish the season with the most saves?
Mm, Alex Lang. Um,
Whoa.
no, that's something from that's what Greg said this past weekend, and I don't know. I used to love Lang, but I'm not there yet with him. I just don't know if it's going to be any one of these three either, though, that you mentioned. It's like I can't see Foley's not getting 28 saves again.
Mhm.
Brieski maybe. I mean, that's the one guy I have liked, but he's not. Um, I don't know. His spring hasn't been exactly great for getting swings and misses, which I thought maybe he would make some adjustments. We've talked about
Yeah, was he changing his fastball locations?
so
Hard to
far a
tell.
little bit. Yeah, it's
Okay.
been hit or miss, and I don't know. I honestly Tyler Holton might be the safe choice here. But he's not going to be their closer.
Yeah.
He's going to be used in all sorts of situations. So I'll say Brieski for the question of who it's the most saves here, but I wonder if they'll end up getting someone before the deadline, like not like at the deadline. Like maybe they'll make a move earlier if they're contending. There's closers who are available for trade, whether it
Yeah.
be Helsley or someone like Robert Suarez even. Um, so I could see it being someone not on this team. It's just a situation I don't want to chase outside of really deep leagues right now. Anything inside the top 450 like pick wise, I'm probably out for the Detroit the Tiger situation.
Yeah, I haven't been drawn in by Jason Foley, and there's something about Tyler Holton and his nebulous role that sort of scares me away in standard leagues. But I'm on the same page with Brieski, and I've been waiting until like my last picks to grab him just in case because he's my
Yeah.
favorite guy in that bullpen. But yeah, you never know with this bullpen. It could be John Brebbia, it could be Tommy Kahnle, and like you said, it could be somebody who's not even on the roster.
Yeah, and Brieski's another one of those guys who like 46 games, 67.2 innings. So
Multiple innings,
kind of
yeah.
like you set up, but in the playoffs, he was kind of more of a one inning guy, and that's when the stuff ticked up a little bit. He
Hmm.
really looked good in the playoffs, so I don't know. Maybe that's like where he should be. Maybe that's what his role should be. I don't think
Only
they
pitching in the
need
playoffs.
no. Well, just being a one like they really don't have anyone else who could be like a long reliever here. I mean, Brant Herter, Brisky. Yeah, well, I guess Holton, Brieski, and Herder are probably all going to throw multiple innings and get like 4 saves
Mhm.
total all year. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Next, we'll discuss the Royals, but first, we're going to take a quick break here on In the Pen. And we're back. Jake Crumpler here with Rick Graham on In the Pen doing our AL bullpen preview. We are midway through the AL Central, discussing the Kansas City Royals, who right now seem to have Carlos Estevez as the closer, but Lucas Urseg was the closer at the end of last year. So both of those guys are still in play for the closer role and the setup role. And I think the main question for me is which one of these guys is going to make us look stupid. It's either going to be Carlos Estevez being really good and making us look stupid for saying don't draft him, or it's going to be Lucas Urseg, who, I mean, I don't think we pumped him up so much that, or really at all, that people are going to call us stupid for that one. But I think we have definitely favored Urseg over Estevez. And we've definitely said if one is going later than the other, take Urseg after
Yeah.
Estevez. Um, so maybe neither of them make us look stupid, which leaves then the question, is there a dark horse candidate in this bullpen that could take over if neither of those guys can claim the role throughout the year?
I don't know. Do you want me to say Hunter Harvey? Is that what you're leaning at?
I don't
Um,
know.
look while I'm talking, look up the TGFBI ADPs for Estevez and Ursig. I'm very curious
Gotcha.
because Ursig went way ahead of Estevez in my league. I don't even know if Estevez is gone yet. Um,
Yeah, Ursig went super early in mine too.
yeah. So, um, I mean, Angel Zerpa gets a lot of love in the Royals rounds, but he doesn't miss bats. Same with Schreiber; he doesn't miss any bats. Um, Hunter Harvey's velo's been down again. He's down this spring. I'm not terribly the way he's, especially the way he ended last season. I'm not gonna get my hopes up for Harvey to have a resurgence, but um, yeah, I really think. I mean, Ursich's the best reliever here. It's not really close after that.
Mhm.
So again, whether it's, I mean, he like last year, let's see, he had 14 saves, 18 holds. Like that could be what he does this year. I feel like he could put up very similar
Yeah.
numbers this season, and that's still pretty useful. And I'm not taking him inside like the top 200 where he's gone here and there, but like where his typical ADP is, like yeah, I'll take a chance on him. He's not my favorite. Like yeah, we're not hyping him up, but his ADP seems fair, is what I
Mhm.
think, and more fair than Carlos Estevez being like a top 100, 160 pick before the back injury kind of uh, scared people away.
Yeah. All right. In TGFBI ADP, Carlos Estevez is going at 212 as
Yeah.
early as 164 and as late as 293, while Lucas Urseg is going at 174 as early as 90 and as late as 253 with a range of 163 picks. That might be the largest range in the whole draft.
It's
It
up
is
there.
close. It is way up there. He's up there with guys. He's the only person with an ADP inside the top 200 to have that much of a variance
Mm,
outside of Grayson Rodriguez because he was injured during the
yeah.
drafts. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little high for Ursig, and now it's like, Estevez fought I had a chance to take Estevez at, like, 230 or I don't know where it was, somewhere in that range, and
Hmm.
I thought about it for a second, I'm like, "No." With the back injury too, it's like, that's if he was fully healthy, sure, but, like, now he's like, just those back injuries can be nagging, and it's a really late start for him this spring. I think he's gonna make an appearance in a game next week is what they said, but I don't know. We're getting like the Dodgers and Cubs are playing on Tuesday. Like those are real games. So like we're getting very close to opening day here. So I don't know if Estevez will be ready, and um I just don't like the skill set to begin with. So yeah, I'm just pretty much all out on him now.
All right. Well, sounds like the Urseg train is getting ready to depart. We'll now move over to the last team in the AL Central, discuss the Minnesota Twins, whose closer is Yohan Duran and setup man is Griffin Jax. And I feel like those two are some of the most consistent relievers that we can sort of rely on going into the season. I don't hear people asking questions about is Griffin Jax going to be good this year? Is Yohan Duran going to be good this year? I don't think anybody's concerned about Yohan Duran not being a top 10 closer or concerned about Griffin Jax's workload being too much for him. I think there's no questions going into the season with those guys, which then leaves open the door for who's going to get holds outside of Duran and mostly Jax.
Yeah, I mean, Yohan Duran's been like not talked about at all this spring, which is
Yeah.
typically I would say maybe it's probably a good thing. I guess
Hmm.
if you're just like set it and forget it in the closer
Yeah.
role. Um, So yeah, after Jax, I mean, Brock Stewart looked good in his first, I think his first outing back from spring. Um, who knows if he can stay healthy? But Brock Stewart's looked really good when he has been able to pitch since the Twins acquired him. Um, and then you got, I mean, Cole Sands, Danny Coulombe's still there, and I'm sure Coulombe's still going to be good. He's throwing like 89, but like he's got all sorts of stuff from the left side. It keeps hitters off balance. Um, and I like Jorge Alcala too. This is really, if this bullpen can stay healthy, it's
Hmm.
really, really one of the more underrated ones. Especially, I mean, Duran and Jax are well known, but outside of that,
Yeah.
it's like guys like Sands, Stewart, Coulombe, Alcala, even Funderburk maybe, and um, there's some really good depth there, and I see Louis
Yeah.
Varland's projected in the bullpen. We talked about him as a
Mhm,
potential really good
mhm.
reliever in the past. So, um, yeah, the Twins bullpen will be an asset for them. I think that's especially in that division. That's um huge to have because that's where the Royals fall short. I feel like outside of Urseg, it's really an issue for them. And then the Guardians are like the best bullpen in baseball, so you have to go up against them with, and then the Tigers have a pretty deep bullpen too. So it's these teams that are fighting for the scraps in the AL Central need to have deep bullpens, and I think the Twins might have the best one outside of the Guardians here.
Interesting.
I
All
don't know.
right.
Is it better than
Well,
the Guardians? I don't know. If Clase really struggles this year, if there are real concerns there, if those are valid, I mean, this Twins bullpen might be enough to. I don't know. The Twins are just like such. Everyone's down on them, but I feel like with their starting rotation and the bullpen, it could carry them to win that division. Wouldn't be
I mean, didn't they
surprised.
like do nothing this offseason?
They've done nothing. Yes, they've
Yeah,
added Danny Coulomb, but I
that's
mean
true. Yeah,
the
not a electric
the
offseason.
the lineup the lineup needed help, and that nothing's happened there. But
No help.
pitching
Sorry.
staff should be fine.
Yeah,
So
no, there's definitely lots of upside in this bullpen, and I like that you pointed out all the names that are interesting there because I think there's a case where any one of these guys can be a dark horse for holds there and be a dark horse for shallower holds leagues, 12 teamers and 10 teamers, especially the guys with the higher upside. We saw what Brock Stewart can do when he's healthy. Jorge Alcala really just needs an opportunity, and as you mentioned, Louis Varland is somebody that
mm,
if he's pitching out of the bullpen. He was really, really good a couple of years ago pitching out of the bullpen. So I think there's plenty of guys there to dream on becoming legit holds candidates in 2025. Let's move over to the AL West and discuss the A's, whose closer is Mason Miller, and the next man up is Jose Leclerc. And I think Mason Miller has no concerns about whether or not he's going to be the closer now that we've put to rest his career as a starter. Obviously, the concerns remain about him holding up for a whole season, throwing as hard as he does with the injury history that he has. But I think there's lots of value to be had here in this bullpen in holds leagues because of the unknown names in this bullpen that are actually pretty good. I think Jose Leclerc's going to be really underrated because he's coming off a 4+ ERA season and is moving to a worse team in a new environment, but he's remaining in the AL West, so he's going to be familiar with all the hitters. Obviously, that goes both ways because the hitters will be familiar with
mm,
him, but he's the number one guy outside of Mason Miller. If Mason Miller goes on the IL, Leclerc's getting saves. If Mason Miller is sick or tired or overworked, Leclerc's getting saves. And then that leaves the rest of the bullpen where I think Michel Otanez is really interesting. He throws really hard. I think there's plenty of holds in store for him. Tyler Ferguson and TJ McFarland are guys who I think were underrated, solid guys last year. McFarland's not going to be a big strikeout guy, but in the same vein as some of those soft tossing lefties that we've seen have success in the past. And then Grant Holman, I think, is somebody that nobody's going to talk about, but he had 5 holds last year in just 15 innings. So there's plenty of guys to go around here, and that's not even counting any of their failed starting pitching prospects.
yeah, Grant Holman's missing a D from his name. Hold, it should be Hold Man. Um, that's like Colin
Good
Holderman
one.
joke.
Good one.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like McFarland, yeah, like you bring up McFarland, he's a guy who's gonna have a 15% strikeout rate, but he always gets like 15 to 20 holds somehow.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Ferguson really took a step forward last year, came from out of nowhere, had a really good season. And then Otonez has huge stuff. If he can just get that walk rate down to like 10%, he has closer stuff. I mean, they would have 2 to 3 closers in this bullpen potentially. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, the bullpen won't be the biggest issue for them. What their rotation does is gonna
Yeah.
kind of make or break the A's this year. I feel like, but getting the ball to Mason Miller shouldn't be a problem for them. I would like to see them have like another lefty that they can trust outside of McFarland, but
Hmm.
how it's set up right now is pretty solid. Like that Ferguson to Otonez to Leclerc to Miller, pretty good group right there.
I agree, and underrated. And I think that
Yeah,
other lefty, as roster resource suggests, is going to come from one of those failed starters. They have
right.
so many guys that they got in all those trades where they got screwed over by the other team, where they just get a bunch of like pitching prospects that never turned into anything. But
Yeah,
I think Kyle Muller's still around. Hogan Harris is projected to be in the bullpen. There's plenty of guys there. They'll figure it out. But yeah, interesting, underrated bullpen in not Oakland. Now we'll move over to the Astros, whose closer is Josh Hader, and next man up is Brian Abreu. But with Ryan Presley gone, is there enough depth to get the ball to Hader to hold the leads?
yeah. It's a huge concern for me because like trying to, I, my top 120 save plus holds. I can't find like a secondary setup man here. Taylor Scott's not that good. I know he had a
Mhm.
2.23 ERA, but I'm not. The peripherals are not buying that. I'm not buying it. I So then there's a bunch of guys that you don't know who they are, like Brian King. Caleb Ort did have some success with them last year and failed Red Sox guy, but I
Mhm.
he's already hurt, so I'm holding back on him. But Ort's interesting for sure because of the velo, and he did have some success with in Houston, so maybe they've turned him around. Forrest Whitley, is this like they kind of actually need him now to be like
Yeah,
a weapon for them. So it's definitely make or break time for him, and hopefully he's got something he can figure out some role where he's effective because there's obviously plenty of stuff there in that arm. It's just staying healthy and finding a role for him. So definitely an opening for the secondary setup role here if that's what works best for him. But yeah, it remains to be seen. If Houston is in contention, I'm sure this is a team that's definitely going to have to buy a reliever at some point.
yeah,
There's just no other way to look at it because this bullpen is very, very thin. If they lose Hader or Abreu,
they're
yeah,
done for.
it gets really dicey.
Yeah. No, and I think they're in a good position though, because I'd rather be searching for a middle reliever at the deadline than a closer. So I would
Yeah,
rather be in this position they are, where you don't have the depth to the bullpen because you can add that throughout the
yeah.
season, even with waiver claims and stuff. So I'm not super concerned about them adding somebody, though. As things stand, I think there is some risk to getting the ball to Abreu and Hader. Once they have the ball, I think they're good. But
Hmm.
getting the ball there through the fifth, sixth, and seventh innings may be a tall task for the Astros. Let's move over to the Angels and discuss their bullpen, where they have Kenley Jansen closing and Ben Joyce as the next man up. And I think this bullpen is really confusing right now because I mean, the Angels probably see themselves as competitive. I don't think any sane person sees the Angels as competitive. And so, I mean, they're going to continue to use Kenley Jansen as a closer, but there's so many factors that enter into that and then create a lot of confusion because if Jansen struggles, if he still deals with the heart issues that he has, is if Ben Joyce, emerges as, an unhittable reliever, how long can the Angels continue to send Jansen out in the ninth inning? And would they even consider using him as a setup man, or would they just get rid of him altogether?
I think Jansen would ask for to be
A
released
trade.
at that point or a trade because he wants his saves. That's what he's here for. Um, it could be a pretty solid bullpen once Stevenson gets back here.
Yeah.
It's definitely more than serviceable. Did you see Ben Joyce the other day? Three strikeouts in an inning of work. He threw like 12 splinkers.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, he looked like Joyce. We were always kind of worried about his swing and miss stuff, and now if this splinker is going to be a real thing, I mean, now he's got a swing and miss pitch to go with the 104-mile-per-hour fastball. So, um, unfortunately, we might not see him close out too many games this year, but next year we have
Yeah.
something to look forward to. So, um, and yeah, this year for Joyce, he needs to stay healthy. Um, just get through a full season, hopefully, or most of the season, healthy. And they have some talent. Ryan John's another guy I kind of like, and it's just the Red Sox gave him up and gave him and four prospects up for Luis Garcia, who did nothing. Like, John had a much better once the trade happened. John had a much better season than Luis
That's
Garcia,
crazy.
so it's like, yeah, I could have just called him up, I guess. But anyway, um, And they got a couple lefties there. Quijada's got some closing experience. He'd be back fully healthy this season. So, yeah, Jansen's gonna. I honestly, if he gets removed from the closer role, I feel like he's gonna demand a trade or has to be
Hmm.
released because
Yeah.
he wants to get to 500 saves. And hey, I don't blame him. That's what he wants. That's his choice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the concern that I had for me because it's like if they get into a situation where it's like, you can't have Kenley Jansen closing anymore. It's like he's just been too bad or too injured or Joyce is too
it could
good
happen.
or the team like is trying to win or whatever. They need somebody in there who's going to lock down the saves. I just there's just no situation where I see him being demoted to the eighth inning or something. Like
No,
as you said, he's gone or something.
yeah, especially if they're trying to win and like he's not. There was character concerns with him when he was in Boston. Like I don't know how valid they were, but like yeah, I don't know if he's. I don't think he's much of a
About how much of
team.
like a team player.
Yeah, I don't think he's much of a team first guy. I think he's
Yeah.
you know I want to get mine and that's fine, whatever. But yeah, it could be a situation where and then I they're not paying him. How much did they end up giving him? already forget. It wasn't like it was
Had to be
year.
like 8.
Yeah, 110, one at 10 million.
Ooh,
So, I mean, that's easy to get rid of. That's easy to move on from. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, I don't know. I still think he's got something left in him though. He's
yeah,
still the cutter's still really good. I think that cutter's gonna give him an extra year or two. So he should be fine. And he's going way too early though for me right now. I thought there would be a little bit of a discount for him signing so late, but like he's moved up into that 140 range, and it's like, you know what?
mhm,
There's other guys there. I'd rather take a chance on Romano than Kenley Jansen. I
yeah,
don't understand.
agreed.
I guess there's just the concern that Romano's not going to be the closer, I guess, but
Come
um
on.
yeah, it's I don't know. There is safety there with Jansen. You know he's going to close. That's the one thing you know saves are going to come with him with when you roster him.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's move over to the Mariners, who have Andres Munoz penciled in as the closer and Gregory Santos as the next man up. I've actually been surprised at how much I've been able to get Munoz this year. I think I've got him in half my leagues. Not that I have a lot of them anyway, but
You got
he's
him at
been
a good
available.
value in our league.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was 88 or something,
Yeah.
very late in the draft. So I've been feeling good about getting him in most of my leagues right now, and I feel like the combination of floor and ceiling with him is beautiful. And then outside of that, that bullpen is really interesting because the Mariners have been really good at turning random dudes into lockdown relievers. So you have that, and then you also have the full season return of Gregory Santos and Matt Brash. Matt Brash is expected to start the season on the IL, but when both of those guys are available,
Yeah.
there may be some trickery being going on in that bullpen. Do you see those two eating into Munoz's save chances, or with Scott Service out, is Munoz just locked in?
I think Munoz is locked in. I think he should be locked in.
Hmm.
Um, there are going to be, yeah, when everyone's healthy in this bullpen, it's going to be a good bullpen. When you get Brash and Troy Taylor back,
Yeah.
Gabe Spear looks a lot better. We talked about Spear like last year in his velo. He lost some velo last season, but that velo from 2023 is back. So I have a good feeling about Spear this year. Santos, Snyder, Carlos Vargas was a guy who was like a relief prospect who might be interesting.
Yeah, I
So
remember him.
yeah, very deep bullpen. Trent Thornton
And he
too.
throws hard.
Yeah, he does. He does. He's one of those Arizona. I think he was with
Yeah.
Arizona. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so very deep bullpen, but Munoz stands above the rest. It's pretty easy. And I don't know what we're gonna get from Brash in his first year back from um, you know, coming back from surgery. Because he's such a guy, like he's just the I'm gonna throw this curveball in the dirt. It's gonna be so filthy you're gonna swing at it. But if he's not able to throw strikes, like again, like it's just
Yeah.
it might hitters might be able to lay off him until he's able to be consistent with the being around the
Hmm.
zone. So
It's like his stuff is almost too good. Like he'll
it
throw a
is.
slider from all
It
the way
starts
behind the batter outside.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like just like don't swing at it because it's like most likely gonna be a ball. Um so we'll see how he's able to command his stuff when he gets back. But a very exciting bullpen nonetheless. And I think Munoz finally gets a chance. 22 saves last year. He's gonna blow that out of the water this season. I think
Let's
at
hope
least at
so.
least 30. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now we can wrap things up with the Texas Rangers, who have Chris Martin looking like the closer and Robert Garcia as the next man up. I think there are some concerns and question marks around how long Chris Martin can hold this role. Outside of his age, I think there's the concerns about him never having been a closer. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's the number one concern is just can this guy in his late 30s, who's been a very, very solid but underrated setup man, can he all of a sudden at 38 become a closer? We'll see.
He doesn't have
Um,
the resume. He doesn't have the experience like
yeah,
Arizona was looking for.
come
Yeah.
on. Yeah. And then so on top of that, I think that opens up the door for us to discuss more Mark Church, as we mentioned him briefly last podcast, I think, maybe even 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
his name has blown up since then. I know there's concerns about his workload, how much workload he can take on, what his control's looking like after a whole year off. But there seems to be some hype around him. So how long can Chris Martin hold this role? And is Mark Church actually somebody we should consider for taking it over at some point?
Yeah, I think Church is more of a wait and see. Let's just see what he looks like early on in the season. Because yeah, he hadn't. I think Greg Jewett was the one who brought this up last weekend. It was like Church hasn't thrown back to back days in his whole career, his
Mm-hmm.
whole major professional career. And I went back even a little bit further. So like the past 3 seasons, he's only thrown twice in 3 days 5 times. So that's like, you know, uh, there's really a lot of we talk about how often Ben Joyce can be used, and Mark Church is kind of up there in that same category for now. So that said, the stuff's electric. Obviously, there's a reason why like he's this stuff's so good. That's why he ends up um injured so much, because it's um that good. But I don't know. I don't know how much we can. Robert Garcia still to me is like that guy was just like you can get him for free at the end of drafts, and like he might not close right away, but I like his overall upside over Chris Martin, who Martin's still very good, and like again, it's another guy who I cannot say is a bad pick at 300. Um, but Garcia going like more than 100 picks later. I know he's left-handed, but they've already said that that's not an issue. And they gave up. I mean, Nathan Lowe is like a everyday player for them. They gave up like a pretty good player that they played at first base every day for a reliever. So, I mean, just looking at that, they definitely think very highly of Garcia. So yeah, I think those three. Luke Jackson's had a good spring. He's probably going to make the roster. I don't know if he gets any save chances. Um, but yeah, hopefully Josh Spores can get back sooner rather than later. 60-day
Yeah,
IL, so it's going to be probably
couple
June or
months.
July. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Church and Garcia have me excited here, and Martin's so consistent that like he should start probably in the closer role. But I feel
Yeah,
like even if someone overtakes him, it doesn't mean like Martin's like bad. I just think like there's so
yeah,
many ways to use him. Yeah, that it's uh and he's a veteran. He's used to it. So um yeah, I don't know. I like Garcia's value. Church is a watch list guy for me, and Martin I don't hate at 300. So that's how I feel
yeah.
about the bullpen.
Yeah, I think Robert Garcia is really safe, and I think there are some tweaks you can make as a fantasy manager when you're looking at somebody like him. Because I'm not talking about you specifically, obviously. Robert Garcia had a 4.22 ERA last year and a sub 30% strikeout rate, and I think people see that and they go, "Oh, well, that's nothing." But it's a 4.22 ERA with a 0.92 xFIP. So I mean, that's one thing
Yeah,
where it's just you don't want to get fooled by the ERA, and then also it's like you say sub 30 strikeout rate, like
it's
just the feeling I
29.9%.
get. Exactly, the feeling I get from looking at a 2 versus a 3 is huge,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
he's as close as you can get to a 30% strikeout rate.
yeah.
So if you switch your brain and you say this is a sub 3 ERA guy with a 30% strikeout rate, and he's
Yeah.
not considered the best reliever in this bullpen, I think people will call you crazy, and that's what you get with surface numbers. So somebody like Robert Garcia, I think, is very underrated because of what his end of season numbers look like. He was really good last year, and he just got unlucky.
Left on base rate was 57% because
Oh my,
he would pretty much every other runner he left on base was scoring because Kyle Finnegan or whatever bum was coming in after him was just giving up hits and runs. And this is a little bit this I mean, this Rangers bullpen isn't great, but it's better than what the uh, Nationals had last season. So hopefully him moving back into like an eighth inning role. He's not coming in the sixth, seventh inning, and these random guys are coming in after him and giving up hits. So I feel like Derek Law probably allowed like all of his runs to score, and that's why Derek Law's ERA looks good
yeah.
and
Mhm.
Garcia's is bad. I don't know if that's it, but that just feels like what happened.
Yeah. Well, that would certainly be an interesting research to do, and I'm sure neither of us are going to undertake that. But
Yeah.
listeners, feel free, let us know in the comments the results of that study. But that will do it for this episode of In the Pen, episode 111. Rick, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody what you're working on and where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at I am Rick Graham. I am currently working on getting some updated rankings for next week. So hopefully Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, two of those days we'll have rankings out. Not a ton of changes. I mean, we've talked about a lot of it on here, but I have to move Hendricks down. I have to move some guys around who have been injured. So don't expect a ton of movement, but there will be some notable shifts. So it's not like Nick's whole list, his starting list, like changes so much every time he
Yeah,
releases one. I'm like, it's, but I mean, he's so locked into everything that like he picks up on,
yeah, it's
especially with
different realm.
I know starters in spring and like opportunity is the big thing. Yeah, so
Yeah.
relievers too, but well, I mean with closers, it's like they're going to be on the roster. It's just what's their role going to be?
Yeah, and you got to have experience if you're going to be a closer.
Seriously, 8 years. Yes.
That's right. All right. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. You can follow the pod at In the Pen Pod. I'm working on all sorts of stuff. Stay tuned to
Mhm.
pitcherlist.com for all of my work. We will talk to you all next week.